Excellencies, colleagues, and dear friends. It is truly a great honor to welcome you to the Nordic Pavilion here at Expo 2025 in Osaka, and to the special event dedicated to gender equality. The theme of our gathering today, Sustainable Growth Through Gender Equality, could not be more timely or more relevant. The World Expo is a celebration of innovation, exchange, and learning across cultures. For us in the Nordic countries, it's also an opportunity to share not only what we have achieved, but also the lessons continue to learn. Gender equality has become one of the cornerstones in our societies, not only as a matter of justice, but also as a foundation for sustainable growth. We know that inclusive societies are stronger, and that when we share power equally, everyone benefits. It builds stronger societies, and through that, a stronger world. We see this progress in our welfare systems, in parental leaves, in women's participation in politics, and in public life. But it did not happen overnight, and we are not at our goal yet. For instance, in my country, the Faroe Islands, one of our biggest problems is that we are in lack of women. They are leaving the country for education more than men, and many of them do not return. The Nordic path towards gender equality has been long and often difficult. More than a century ago, women secured right to vote and to stand for election. In the decades that followed, we expanded childcare systems and introduce generous parental leave to make it possible for both mothers and fathers to combine work and family life. Each step was hard won, and even today our work is far from done. The gender pay gap, the underrepresentation in leadership, the violence against women, challenges around diversity, and the fight to safeguard women bodily autonomy remains very real. Yet these reforms have shaped the societies we know today and shown that equality and sustainable growth reinforce each other. At the same time, we are facing wider global challenges. In recent years, we have seen growing resistance, even regression, against gender equality, women's and girls' rights, and the rights of LGBTI persons. So we have to stay strong together and face these challenges. This is why the Nordic Council of Ministers for Gender Equality and LGBTI adopted a common Nordic roadmap with the ambition to pushing back the pushback on continuing to move forward to a more equal world. Our goal is clear: to safeguard universal human rights, to ensure that no one is left behind, and to stand firm against discrimination. We must push forward. We cannot ignore the global picture. Around the world, we see setbacks from restriction on reproductive rights to law that silence women activists to growing intolerance toward LGBTI communities. These trends reminds us that progress is fragile. What takes decades to build can be undone in a few years or less. That's why international cooperation is so vital. And that's why linking equality to sustainable growth, making it a driver of stronger, more resilient societies, is so powerful. If women and girls are left behind, the future society will not be sustainable. Japan brings to this conversation its own remarkable strengths: world-class education, technology, innovation, and a strong sense of community. These are invaluable foundations as we look for new ways to advance equality together. I also want to highlight Japan Nordic Diplomacy Initiative announced last year. The initiative rests on 4 pillars, one of them being gender equality. Within this, Japan has placed special emphasis on the women, peace and security agenda as a key element in its foreign policy. This is a powerful signal of Japan's commitment to advance equality both at home and abroad, and it creates a strong foundation for deepening our cooperation. For us in the Nordic region, it is inspiring to see Japan highlight gender equality as one of the central pillars in our partnership. The Nordic experience may offer ideas, perhaps even a roadmap, but it is not a blueprint. What worked for us may not work the same way elsewhere. That's why we see this as a true partnership, an opportunity to share both success and struggles, to learn from each other's strengths, and to shape solutions rooted in our own traditions, yet inspired by one another. Together, we can develop approaches that neither of us should achieve alone. In doing so, we can show that gender equality is not only fair, but it's also a pathway to sustainable growth. If we combine the Nordic commitment to equality with Japan's strength in innovation, we can create a powerful alliance, one that benefits our own societies, but also serves in inspiration globally. Dear friends, equality is not a gift handed down to us. It is built day by day through choices, policies, and the courage of individuals and civil movements. So let's not talk ahead or behind one another, but side by side, pushing forward on a shared roadmap towards future where equality is not only a vision, but a reality lived by generations to come, and a reality for us living now. That will be a key to a stronger, sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, dear friends of the Nordic countries. At the Nordic Council of Ministers, we are very proud to be able to present the very best that our countries offer to the Expo 2025 audience here in Osaka. And I want to thank every one of you for making it through the high temperatures and the long lines to be with us today to discuss gender equality, a topic that is so integral to our Nordic societies. For more than 50 years, the Nordic countries have been united in a shared vision to make sure that gender equality prevails in all areas of our societies and to ensure that every individual is free to pursue their dreams. In global surveys, the Nordic countries consistently rank among the highest when it comes to gender equality, economic and political participation, and educational accomplishments. We are proud of our achievements, which have contributed to both welfare, innovation, and economic progress in our region. But we are not satisfied yet. There's still much more to do to close the gender gap, especially when we look at the economic and financial equalities. And so we work tirelessly, politically and evidence-based, to figure out ways to improve even further. The one thing that is crystal clear is that there is no one single silver bullet that can bring us gender equality. It will require a continuous and interdisciplinary effort, and we need to use all the tools that we have available in our boxes. Looking back at how we got to the top of the global rankings, that was also very much the case. So if we are to account for our journey, and maybe to inspire other countries to find their own smart pathways towards gender equality, we must look at factors related to both societal structures, to policies, and to culture. And we must understand how these things impact each other. I know that the panelists later on will dive deeper into these discussions. But on an overall level, I want to reiterate what Minister Steenberg also mentioned, that when it comes to gender equality, it's no longer primarily a question of what is fair or what is right. It is something that we approach strategically, because by enabling both women and men to fully contribute at work, and by enabling both women and men to fully contribute at home, we will build more innovative, more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable societies to the benefit of us all. There is generally a high level of participation of women in the workforce in the Nordic countries, and which is a valuable asset for our economies in several ways. On the most basic level, this of course expands the labor force so that we can generate more income and we can better staff our quite large welfare sectors. But it also ensures that when doing so, we can draw upon the entire pool of talent amongst our citizens, and that the talent pool that we recruit from is much more diverse. That is important economically because several studies show that gender diverse teams are more productive and actually much better at problem solving. So with more women in the labor force, both our private and our public sectors are likely to be more creative and more innovative. In fact, according to a white paper by Boston Consulting Group and the Danish think tank Equalis, diverse teams generate approximately 20 percentage point higher revenue from innovation. And also, an inclusive workplace boosts retention and makes an organization approximately 70% more likely to capture new markets. Those are very important figures for our companies to be aware of in the global competition for talent and for profit. If we look at the distribution of women across the different tiers of our labor force, we see that women are generally represented in both boardrooms and leadership positions in the public and in the private sector, although we still see proportionately few at the very top. Unfortunately, we also see some considerable differences between men and women in their ability to get access to finance for their companies, just as we see relatively few women amongst our entrepreneurs. The Nordic countries have chosen slightly different ways to work towards gender equality, but I'd like to highlight two areas which I believe have been the key to developments across our regions. First of all, policies related to shared parental leave have contributed to equality both at home and at work. So when both parents can take leave, it becomes easier to share responsibilities at home, and it also helps women get back to work. So in that way, it also leads to retaining skilled workers in our labor force. The other aspect I want to mention is affordable quality childcare services. It's been crucial for our developing and supporting the high participation of both men and women in the workforce. It allows the parents to pursue education, be an entrepreneur, work full-time while having young children. And whilst the parents do so, public childcare also promotes early childhood development and social integration. So in that way, it may also contribute to reducing inequalities and give our next generation of labor force the best chances to succeed. Nordic companies are key players in the innovation and technological transformation needed to address the major challenges of today's societies and to achieve sustainable growth. Our steadfast belief in and our consistent defense of values such as respect for human rights, diversity, and equality has been the basis for our progress, and it's also very much the foundation upon which the Nordic cooperation is built. In the Nordic Council of Ministers, we actively engaged in advancing equality and inclusion in our region, and we are also a strong advocate for these values globally. In November last year, the Nordic Ministers for Gender Equality adopted a new declaration and a platform to counter what we reference to as a global pushback. So I think Minister Stenberg also explained this phenomenon. In the declaration, the ministers vow to defend the advancements already made, to never go back, and to keep pushing forward for progress. And there is, unfortunately, a grave need for this work, with the pushback against gender equality and equal rights that we currently witness in many parts of our world. But also in our home region in the Nordic countries, we cannot take previous achievements for granted. Current political developments also influence this area, as for example, when some of our largest companies who work internationally begin to roll back their equality goals or to suspend their reporting on diversity due to outside pressures. So we have to, and we will, continue to work towards the goal of gender equality inside our region and with our partners globally. I thank you for your interest in our work, and I invite you to a continued dialogue where Japan and the Nordic countries can learn from and inspire each other. There's clear evidence that this will make our economies stronger. And if I may add a personal note, I also think this could make us just a little bit more happy. Because as you know, the Nordic countries also top the global rankings when it comes to happiness. And I wonder, maybe there is a connection. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, I'm honored to stand here with you today in Osaka to reflect on the role of women in male-dominated fields and leadership. For me, this subject is not abstract, it's personal. I come from the Faroe Islands, a small society in the North Atlantic where the fisheries sector has shaped both our economy and our identity. For generations, this sector has been dominated by men, at sea, in management and in ownership, while the vital contributions of women have remained invisible. My own professional journey, like that of many others, has taken me into a variety of fields where women are still in the minority. I've been a diplomat for years, and in a small country with a still very young foreign service, this has given me some interesting gender issues to deal with along the way. Diplomats are traditionally men who are sent out to represent their country, while the spouse stays at home and takes care of the children and the household. Not always the case. These experiences have shown me two things. Firstly, when women enter male-dominated fields, they do not simply add to what already exists. They bring new ideas, fresh priorities, and a broader sense of leadership, of what leadership can be. Secondly, progress does not happen overnight. It is the result of patient reforms, cultural change, and inspiration from and exchange with others. In the Nordic countries, gender equality has been built step by step. Women's entry into the labor market, men's increasing role in family life, and the steady rise of women in politics have together transformed our societies. These changes have not only benefited women, they have strengthened our economies and made our welfare states sustainable. One striking example is the introduction of earmarked parental leave for fathers in Denmark in 2022. In the first year, 9 out of 10 fathers took leave, a dramatic increase from before, when far fewer men used this right. Studies show that when men take leave, children benefit, gender gaps in the workplace shrink, and women's long-term financial earnings rise. So this is not just a social policy, it is smart economics. In Iceland, legislation requires companies with more than 25 employees to prove that they pay men and women equally, like we heard before lunch. This equal pay certification has changed workplace practices, brought greater pay transparency, and set a global example. And in Sweden, one of the earliest adopters of shared parental leave, the participation of women in the labor market is now among the highest in the world. These policies show that progress is not accidental, it is designed. In the Faroe Islands, challenges remain very real. Our labor market is still divided. Women are overrepresented in care and education jobs, but underrepresented in politics and leadership. Women's bodily autonomy is still unprotected by law. And demographically, we face a particular complicated obstacle. There are significantly fewer women than men in our population. So for a small and remote society, this imbalance is not only a social issue, it raises questions of long-term sustainability. Yet, even in such a context, we must believe that change is possible. We must build on progress. We must tackle the pushback against gender equality, women's rights, and equal rights for LGBTI persons that we have seen rise in recent years. When fathers take parental leave, when young women enter professional fields that were once close to them, when men choose professions of care, These changes may seem small, but together they alter the fabric of society. In the Nordic region, we are proud of what we have achieved, but our progress has not been uniform. Each of our countries has chosen its own path, and this diversity of approaches has been a strength. We have learned from each other, and we continue to learn. Globally, we are reminded that equality is never secured once and for all. Resistance exists. Rights can be rolled back. And on occasions like today, we are reminded of our commonalities, and at the same time, we might consider each other's differences. For instance, we might consider Japan's strengths in education, innovation, and community, because our differences might serve as valuable foundations as we look for new pathways to strengthen equality as our common goal. When I look back on my own journey, and likewise the Nordic journey, I see that change happens slowly, sometimes quietly, but always through cooperation between women and men, between sectors, and between nations. The Nordic countries have shown that equality benefits everyone. Higher female labor force participation has increased GDP significantly. Diverse leadership correlates with better decision-making and stronger performance in both politics and business. Investment in childcare and parental leave has been key to making equality a structural reality, not just an aspiration. And perhaps most importantly, equality builds trust. Trust in institutions, in leadership, and in each other. Without trust, no society can be sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, the role of women in male-dominated fields and leadership is not just a matter of fairness. It is about growth, resilience, and sustainability of our societies. The more we share, the more we learn. Our exchange of experiences can instigate, invigorate, and inspire. It is what might help steer us onto more resilient, more sustainable paths. So let us continue this exchange. Let us continue to push forward, even when there is resistance. And let us continue to remind ourselves that gender equality is not a woman's issue. It is a cornerstone of economic growth and sustainable societies. Thank you.